How's it going, guys? Football-ManagerYouthDevelopment.co.uk here. In this episode, I'm going to be answering a question on how to get the most out of a target man. For the purpose of making this video, I'm going to split it down into two sections. So the first part of the video is going to be the attributes and things that you should look out for a decent target man. And then secondly, I'm going to be creating a tactic and show you guys the best ways to get the most out of your target man. Okay, so before we go any further, I think it's really important that we just have a quick look at what a target man actually does. It may seem a little bit obvious potentially, but yeah, really important to know what they do and what they can do. So a target man can transform an average team into a good one by using his sheer physicality to disrupt the opposition's defence and open space for his strike partner and supporting midfielders. The target man uses his strength and aerial presence to bring teammates into play rather than relying on technical ability. With an attack duty, the target man will lead the line and open space for teammates to move into. So it's pretty obvious that what you could obviously do is just go to the highlight key attributes for role tool and just go to attacking, then go to target man and then just click on attack. So obviously for a target man there are going to be some key attributes that you can pick out, but reading the description, personally I do think that there's going to be some additional things to look out for. So one of the main things that I kind of got out of the description of a target man is that they bring others into play. So for me, I think, you know, a target man should look to probably be getting quite a few assists. So I've actually clicked on this guy just as a really good example, because I'm just going to have a look at his history and then go career stats. And what we can see here, that this guy, although he does score a lot of goals, he does actually get quite a few assists as well. So we can see quite often he's roughly hovering around sort of like 10 assists a season, which is absolutely fantastic for a striker. Obviously, you know, he's not actually made for kind of, you know, being creative or anything like this. His vision's 12, you know, he's not exactly, you know, made for being creative, but you can see here that because he's got kind of key attributes, he's getting a hell of a lot of assists just by, you know, being really physical, you know, being in the right place at the right time and things like this. So a good thing to do, guys, is if you are looking for a target man, if you click on attributes and pick the ones here, what I've decided to do here is just pick out the ones that I personally do believe are going to be the best ones. So yeah, I think that aggression, bravery, heading, off the ball and strength are going to be your main ones for picking out a target man. So what I'll do, I'll just lower it to say, I don't know, 13, just as an example. I'm just having a look at some assists here. So obviously this guy did spring to mind when I was actually looking for a target man. And so obviously what we can do, we can just have a look at some other players like this as well. I think when you are looking at players, guys, it's really good idea to just try and have a look at their history. So recently when I've been playing Football Manager, I've been sort of operating on a bit of a Moneyball sort of approach. So yeah, kind of have a look at the stats for the players, you know, how well they're actually playing, you know, what league they're playing in, you know, goals and things like this. And you can actually find some proper good players when you do this. So just as an example, this kid I am actually after, so he came through the Real Madrid youth team, I believe, and so he's kind of been sort of sent around all over the place. Obviously not particularly had much of a chance to get into Real Madrid first team, but you can see this guy, he does actually get quite a lot of assists when he's, you know, actually given a chance to play, as well as scoring quite a number of goals. And look at that average rating. So yeah, this is a guy that I'm most definitely after. And the good thing about this guy as well, that he's actually transfer listed for £1 million. So when I'm actually looking at this bloke, you know, I'm looking at his aggression, I'm looking at his bravery, his strength. He's 6 foot tall, good work rate, good teamwork, things like this. And, you know, for me, a target man, you know, they're not there necessarily to get the goals. Like the description said, they are there to bring other players into the game as well. So just as a real little side tip, just before we go on to look at tactics, what I've been doing recently, so just using exactly the same example again of just kind of having a look at all the attributes. What I've been really concentrating on a lot, if you go to stats and then overall, it's a good idea to have a look at average rate. And, you know, you can have a look at things like pass rate, goals, assists, like loads of different stuff. And, you know, this is going to make you find the very best players. So like I said, I'm already after this guy. And obviously, you know, I've just found this kid as well, just by using this method. And yeah, to be honest, I don't really need to say too much. Like, clearly he's not kind of made for being a target man at 5'9", but if we just remember that description, that they are there to bring other players into play. This kid, although he's 5'9", he's got strength of 14, teamwork of between 17 and 19, work rate. He's basically just a god, pretty much. And then, again, looking at his history, we can see that, playing in that striker role in 25 games, although he did get 24 goals last season, he did actually manage to get 12 assists. Again, the last season, 27 games, 21 goals, 7 assists, 6 assists. So, these are really, really important things to just, make sure that we're reviewing when we are looking for a target man. Okay, so now moving on to having a look at a tactic that you can create for a target man. So I'm actually pretty lucky. I've got this kid here. When he was 20 years old, he was actually described as a wonder kid. I'm just going to highlight his attributes just for the target man position. So we can see here that he's got strength 17, teamwork 15, heading 15, aggression, pretty good bravery, etc, etc. So I'm very, very lucky to have this kid. If we have a real quick look at just the amount of goals that he's scored for me, so this season he's got 10 goals in just 7 appearances. To be honest, the tactic that I do ordinarily play for my team, I do actually use this kid as a poacher a lot of the time, just because of the kind of style of play that I do like to play. He obviously does get a hell of a lot of goals for me when I do play as a poacher. What I will ordinarily do, though, I will use him as a target man if I'm playing a team that's maybe a little bit better than me. So these are the type of things you can do to just get the most out of your target man. What you really, really do need to do is just have a look at what your target man is best at. So the first few kind of places I'm going to be looking at is first touch and heading. So let's pretend here that you've got a 5'9", target man, just for example. He's got everything else that's pretty good, like strength and etc. But let's pretend his first touch is say 15 and his head-in is 9. So pretty obvious that if you are using someone that's a little bit shorter and his head-in's not as good, that it's not going to be a very good idea to kind of hoof the ball up to him and use him in that capacity. It's going to be a very, very good idea to pass the ball into his feet, which obviously his first touch is going to be, really, really key to this, to be honest. His technique is going to come into play. His work rate and off the ball is also going to come into play as well. So obviously what you're looking for in a target man, you're looking for them to, kind of be in the correct position at the right time. You're looking for them to control the ball instantly, and then obviously just lay it off for another player to, be quite productive. So thinking about that and having that in the back of your mind, type of things that we can do here, we can obviously look to retain the possession of the ball. So maybe that you might be kind of passing into a player's feet just so that he can, make the most of the, the service that he's getting. Basically, you can look for low crosses. Obviously, this puts the ball across the ground. And like it says here, this is better for players that, players that perhaps lack size, but instead they're quicker off the mark and can lose a defender in a small space or area. So you can actually still use a target man with the low cross, and it's something that I do, pretty much all the time, basically. But it's just assessing basically what is best for your target man. You can obviously have like whipped crosses or floating crosses. If you had, a target man that was say like 6'4", 6'5", and he had a heading of 20, you'd be pretty stupid not to kind of float the crosses across to him, just so that you can make the most of his heading ability. Taking a real quick look at the player instructions, so what I tend to do, you can have your wingers and your fullbacks just with the instruction to cross directing at the target man. So what I tend to do is just do that on all my wingers and fullbacks. I think that's obviously a really, really good way. So obviously with a target man, you do want him to kind of get into play as quickly as possible. And obviously if your fullbacks and everyone else is just kind of getting him involved as much as possible, then that's going to be a really good thing to just make sure that you're getting the most out of this player. If you have got a pretty special player like this guy, he's just going to absolutely dominate teams basically. So just have a look at his career stats again. Unfortunately, this kid had quite a lot of injuries. Touch wood, this season he's not been injured too much, but if you put him in the right position at the right time, he certainly knows where the back of the net is, and he can score a hell of a lot of goals. If I'm using him in the right way. So Yeah, for tactics, just make sure that you're obviously looking at other things apart from attributes. Just obviously make sure that, you know, things like teamwork are really high on the player, aggression, bravery, you know, first touch, have a look at that, have a look at the head and attributes, and then obviously just making sure that you're, you know, kind of picking a tactic where you're going to make the most of your target man, either playing it into his feet or, you know, kind of using his aerial ability. So real quick examples, say Graziano Pele for Southampton, you know, they will tend to kind of play the longer balls up to him because he's actually really good in the air. You know, he can head the ball down, you know, he'll play it off with his chest and things like this. So, you know, Southampton know that they can make or get the best out of Pele if they kind of use him in this particular way. So I'm going to call this the end of the episode, guys. I hope you have found this interesting, and yeah, that you've kind of got some tips on how to find players and things like this as well. So yeah, do leave your comments if there's any particular things that you do to make sure that you're getting the most out of your target man, or if you've got any tips for player searches, I'd certainly like to hear them. And yeah, we'll be back very soon for some more Football Manager videos.